Things are getting heated in the North Central African country of Chad. When I tell you that that country has thrown any hope of any diplomatic relationship with Germany, I am not exaggerating. They went ahead and expelled the German ambassador in Chad for meddling in the internal politics. And in retaliation, Germany went ahead and expelled the Chadian ambassador to Germany and gave them 48 hours to leave Germany. A diplomatic row is brewing between these two countries all over politics, democracy, elections, and human rights. We just have to wait and see how it unfolds, right? Hi guys, how are you doing? Welcome to another episode of these chats or sit downs. My name is Ndoro Ganga. I am a business journalist by profession, and I'm also a digital content creator. You can catch me on my YouTube channel at Ndoro Ganga, where I do content on diaspora relocation to the continent. And also you can connect with me on social media at Ndoro Ganga on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Last week, news made headline that the German ambassador to Chad had been expelled from the country. Now, this is a very ballsy move. These are just things that we've seen happen in the West. We've seen it with North Korea, we've seen it with America, we've seen it with some. It rarely happens on the continent, and it's because of, first of all, the repercussions that it have, particularly when it comes to some of these Western superpowers. So let me put this into context. Chad was being led by a military leader who was in power for over 20 years, okay? And his name was Idris Deby. And because of political unrest in the country, and some parts of the country were feeling like it's not fair for one person to be in office for over 2 decades, going to 3 decades, and development is not spread out across the country. It divided the country into two, and there was sort of like a civil war going on. And the president, what was being reported is that the president died in the battlefront of the war. Now, as is with very many African countries, it's not unique, it's not new, it's distasteful, it's disgusting, it's undemocratic. His son rose over to power, Mahat Idris Deby, and you know, it's always fascinating in such a sad way that leadership is almost genetic on the continent. So when a politician dies, it's his son, it's his brother that takes over that position. It's almost like it was his. Let us leave it for his family members, you know? We don't think outside. Now, his son is also part of the military junta that are fighting in the country. And when the son took power, the military made a promise that there'll be a transitional military council that will lead the country for a period of only 18 months and then hand over back power to civilians. In the 18 months, the country was supposed to sort of find stability, reduce the war that was going on in the country, and hand over power peacefully so that democracy can reign supreme. Talk to the opposition, hear them, what they have to say, because it's the opposition that are also leading their troops in the streets, right? And so that did not happen. If anything, when elections were supposed to be held last year, 2022 October, it did not happen, and the court gave the military council an extra 2 years, and so the elections are going to be held in 2024. You can imagine that this did not sit well with the opposition, and the military council that was leading the country boycotted conversations with the opposition of Chad, and so it led to more unrest, more fighting, and international media is reporting that at least 74 people have died, and many opposition leaders in Chad are living in exile because they fear for their life. Now, this is where the German ambassador comes in. The German ambassador did not hold back. If anything, he rebuked the fact that the transitional committee did not honor the promise that it made not only to the international community, but to Chadians, by saying that in 18 months, they will hand over the government back to civilians. It means that the people of Chad will have to wait for another 2 years to go into election in 2024. He also spoke about the infringement of human rights because anytime there's civil unrest or there's any form of war or fighting in a country, it's civilians that suffer. It's civilians that catch the bullets and die, all for what? For one or two people to remain in power. And this is some of the things that he raised. And he's not the only person that has spoken about it. Spain has spoken about it. Netherlands has spoken about it. But it did not sit well with the government and the leadership of Chad, and they accused him of meddling in government affairs and making comments that was sort of dividing the people of Chad. Note that it's the civilians that are fighting. They're those that support the military government, and they're those that support the opposition and would like to see resumption of democracy and electing leaders back in office as opposed to military leadership. And so when an international office makes such a remark, obviously different camps are going to interpret it differently, and maybe that's why the government said that those remarks are causing division in the country. And so what did they do? They told the German ambassador, well, bro, it's been real, pack up, it's time for you to leave. And the ambassador left. He left, I think, a few days later, and he was on an Air France plane back to Germany. Germany said, okay, you want to play? We can play tit for tat. Germany gave the Chadian ambassador in Germany 48 hours to vacate not only the premises, but also the country. And we saw the European Union come out and condemn what had happened and say that it's in bad faith to expel diplomats from your country, and also just it goes against the international diplomatic relations and laws and guidelines that have been put in place. But then again, I'm just going to put this, I'm going to relate it to something that happened in Ghana. There was a time in Ghana where a human rights activist was arrested, and one of the diplomats who has been posted in Ghana commented on something about it, and the Inspector General of Police came out and said that diplomats and ambassadors have no business commenting on internal politics that go on in the country, and that's in line with some of the guidelines that have been laid in place when it comes to diplomatic relations and the role of ambassadors and diplomats in various countries that they've been posted to. So maybe that is what the Chadian government based the expulsion on. And we are not saying that the expulsion was warranted or unwarranted. Mine is just to report and tell you that the German ambassador was expelled because the government feels like he was meddling with internal politics, and in retaliation, the German government expelled the Chadian ambassador. I think that it's going to get tougher before it gets better for a country like Chad. International meddling has never been known to bring any solid solution. I mean, all the countries where France has sort of intervened or meddled for whatever reason, the fighting has sort of, it's taken way longer than it should have. So international community, whether we like it or not, they always have their own agenda. We cannot downplay the fact that some of the issues that the German ambassador raised are very valid, that it's unfair for a whole country to wait for 2 years to have a general election that you promise they will have without giving a valid reason. It's unfair to cut out opposition in conversations about giving back power to the people because they're part of the leadership in the country. And it is atrocious for people to die for the sake of a political agenda. But then again, nobody does anything out of the kindness of their heart. And it's important to know that by the time they are speaking, there's always an agenda. We might say it, we might not say it, but I've been alive long enough to know that the Western world doesn't care about countries where they have nothing to gain from. So we sit back and we watch. Will Germany and Chad be able to resolve their diplomatic tiff, or will Chad go ahead and expel more diplomats that they will deem as meddling in the internal politics? Let me know what you think about this. Was the Chadian government in line with expelling the German ambassador, and did Germany take the retaliation too far by expelling the Chadian ambassador to Germany instead of maybe pursuing mediation and conversation as the West is always championing for instead of tit for tat. My name is Ndiro Oganga. Catch me on my YouTube channel at Ndiro Oganga or on social media at Ndiro Oganga. I'll see you again next time.